genuine science, a measurement can only be done if there's an explanatory theory, an objective explanatory theory about the value that is measured and the expectations of that value and what we expect to get and how accurate we expect to be. So there has to be a connection between the measurement and what we're expecting to measure or the result, and this is the explanatory theory. That's the connection. This is from David Deutsch's The Beginning of Infinity. I find this unbelievably important for science, and it applies very well also for fund management. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's November 19th, 2020. This is Krim Delco. For the day, the fund is up 8.5%. The market's up 0.5%. For the year, we're up 258%. The market's up roughly 10.8%. We're outperforming by 246.2%. So if you put $100 in Orange Capital Partners on January 1st, you would have roughly $358. And if you did the same with the S&P 500 on January 1st, you would have roughly $110.8. The main outperformer is Tesla, which keeps performing pretty well because of the inclusion in the S&P 500. We expect some demand imbalances to continue, some volatility in the stock, but overall, we believe that the stock has very, very healthy upside in terms of the fundamentals of the business, which we expect to be very good in the coming quarters. Also, our CRISPR index is doing well, primarily driven by Twist Bioscience, the synthetic biology company, which is benefiting from the increase of demand for synthetic DNA and synthetic RNA and other molecules that are necessary to fight COVID-19. So back to David Deutsch's statement that in genuine science or true science, you need to have a connection between what you're measuring and the results and the expectations of the results and the accuracy of those results. There has to be an explanatory theory, which that is the connection. And he's pointing out examples of where that can go extremely wrong in science if you don't have that kind of theory. And I believe this is a much deeper problem in many sciences, including economics and including finance. And this is why I thought it would be interesting to dedicate an episode to this particular problem. The problem is the following. You can measure a lot of things in the world and then find correlation and write papers and publish papers and call yourself a scientist by simply stating facts of correlation. You can sometimes even maybe infer some sort of cause and effect. But unless you have an explanation which links the measurables with a theory of why this specific measure that you're doing has any physical or abstract relevance to the subject matter, you just don't have anything, because you might as well just be a wizard. Here's an explanation that I think here's an example of how this can be brought home, this argument. Deutsch talks in his book about the measurement in psychology of happiness. And it can be measured by finding a gene for happiness. So you can simply have 10,000 people checking boxes and say, are you happy or are you not happy? And then you can find that the people that tend to check the box happy also happen to have a specific gene. And then you can infer, well, given my statistics, p-value and all that, I think that this gene is the happy gene. End of story. Papers published. Scientific American has a headline, Time Magazine has a headline, New York Times has a headline, etc., etc. We found the happy gene. What Deutsch is criticizing here is the lack of explanation, the lack of connection between that particular gene and the physical processes which might or might not lead humans to be happy given that gene. So if we had a theory, an explanation for how this particular gene binds molecules that create proteins that do something, let's say, create more dopamine in the brain and make us happy or something like that, then maybe we would be onto something. But if we don't have that explanation, so if we don't have a connection between the measurable, which is happiness, and the object, which is the gene, and the cause and effect, and the explanation for physical processes which lead from the gene to happiness, Until we have that, we don't have a theory. We have nothing. This is pseudoscience, or in David Deutsch's words, it's not genuine science, because it might as well be that maybe people that have that gene are good looking, and good looking people tend to be happier. Or it could be that people actually who have that gene are unhappy and just pretend to be happy because they read some book that if they pretend to be happy, that makes them happier. So in fact, that gene is causing the opposite. So without an explanatory theory of how this particular gene, through the process of microbiology and synthesis of proteins and etc., unless we have a deep understanding of the physical, biological processes within the human body that cause happiness through that gene, unless we have that, we have nothing. We have some pseudo correlation science, some sort of I would say this is exactly right. This is pseudoscience. This has nothing to do with science. And I think this is an important point that I want to connect now to Wall Street, and also to the name of the podcast, Not Even Wrong, because this is exactly what we mean when we say not even wrong. In order to be wrong, you have to have an explanatory theory. You have to have something that you can measure, and then you can say, well, I'm right or wrong. But if you don't even have an explanatory theory about what you're measuring, about what you're actually doing, you're not even wrong. This is a quote from Wolfgang Pauli. It was used in the context of, I guess, some experiment which was done in quantum physics in the 1920s. So, of course, it's far away. I'm not sure if I probably would not get the context right anyway, so I don't want to go there. But I like the idea. And the point here is that we at Orange Capital Partners strive to earn the right to be wrong or right. Of course, we would like to be right, like everybody. We have a genuine interest for progress and better explanations for the subject matter that we're dealing with. In our case, it is finding disruptive technologies and innovations that generate wealth and also have large impact. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is the purpose of our fund. And in order to do that, we, like scientists, not unlike scientists, let's say that way, have to do research. We have to do experiments. We are calibrated through the financial markets in terms of, are you right and wrong? So we're a little bit different than a physicist in a laboratory, but nevertheless, we have the same problem. And I think this is the genuine fund manager, and this is very important for anybody who wants to be a fund manager, and even more important for people who are investing money with fund managers. Ask them, what is your explanatory theory? How do you explain A causes B? Why are your stocks making money or supposed to make money? I think also the analogy of the pool, the game of pool, where you have to predict where the balls are going to go, is very good here, because I have to predict where the balls are going to go. I can't just shoot a pool, or whatever you call that, when you shoot the white ball and then the balls go and just kind of randomly fall into the holes. This is not how fund management is supposed to work. This is not how science is supposed to work. Fund management, exactly like science, needs to have an explanatory theory of why there is a certain process in place that you're trying to achieve with your investment, or that you're after with your investment, or you're betting on, if you want to use the betting word, which I don't like, but let's just use it for. So you are saying, I'm going to put my money on this because of that, because I expect this company to do this, this, and that, and therefore I think we will generate wealth. Now, at Orange Capital Partners, we attack this problem in the following way. We have a principle stack, which is based on 4 books: 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen, The Innovation Stack by Jim McKelvey, and The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch. These 4 books are the basis of our principle stack. And even to be a little bit more granular, The Beginning of Infinity is the sort of the principle of the principle stack. So our 3 books, 0 to 1, The Innovation Stack, and The Innovator's Dilemma, are based on the Beginning of Infinity, or the principles that we draw from those books are based on the fundamental principles of The Beginning of Infinity. We believe The Beginning of Infinity is an epistemological book. That means a book that is about knowledge creation, and since we consider ourselves in the business of knowledge creation, as fund managers, it is our job to create knowledge and propel that knowledge into, instantiate that knowledge into trades, and then those trades generate wealth. This is what we do as fund managers. So we start with the principle stack with those 4 books, and then we derive from those principles explanations for why we believe that certain companies might be successful. Tesla is our largest position. It is based on several principles from our principle stacks. For example, in 0 to 1, Peter Thiel makes clear that you can only generate wealth if you're a monopolist, if you're a unique thinker with a unique vision, a unique founder with a very specific vision of the future. Elon Musk fits that perfectly, so we have an explanation for why we expect Elon Musk to be successful in delivering his vision. He also is attacking a large market, but disguised in a small, very competitive manner. This is another concept of the 0 to 1 principle, which is be a monopolist, but don't tell anybody. What that means is Musk is saying, oh, I only have 1% of the car market. And even the shorts are going on CNBC saying, this company makes no sense. They only have 1% market share. Why do they have so much market cap? Well, in reality, what Tesla has is 90% market share of the smart electric luxury vehicles market. And that is the future of the transportation market. So if you extrapolate that, of course, this can be a very valuable company. And this is a principle that we draw from the innovator's dilemma, which is disruption usually happens by creating a new technology creates a new market that incumbents don't even care about because they don't even know that they care about. Their customers don't care about. And that's how you're able to grow and create scale before they even can do something, and then it's too late, and then they do take over the market. Another concept of the principle stack that we have is the innovation stack by Jim McKelvey, which is that innovation is a necessity, not a choice. What that means is that by creating something new, you have to solve problems that have never been solved before. And you do that step by step through an iterative process. Research and development, science and technology are key. But what's even more important is the laser focus on a specific mission that is driving that research and development, because you can do research in all kinds of places. I mean, academia is doing a lot of research, but they're not creating wealth, or most of them don't, because there is this lack of vision and lack of focus and lack of specific tasks that need to be solved in order to achieve a certain goal. And while you're solving those tasks, you're creating new problems, which, according to David Deutsch, should be better problems. So you can't create new problems and destroy even more than you've had before you even solved the first problem. What that means is by creating the new problems, you create better problems, and you solve those, and you create even better problems, and that's how you build wealth. This fits extremely well into the concept of Tesla. We've also discussed other companies on this podcast, and we've written about this and spoken about it, that we believe, for example, there are other innovative technologies which could be disruptive or are disruptive. One of them is Bitcoin. Bitcoin could become the reserve currency of the globe. It is not there yet. We have a theory of how this could happen and why it's not happening now. So we have an explanation for why we believe this could happen. Another disruption which is happening is Apple. Apple is disrupting the computing market by designing chips based on ARM and the so-called system on chips, and getting away from the CPU, which is very disruptive for the compute market. Again, this is classic disruption theory. Apple started decades ago with small devices, with iPods, but then the iPhone came, and they created scale and know-how in how to create chips in a different way than the x86 architecture by Intel. And now Apple is at the cusp of being able to deliver not just the same performance metrics like the x86 architecture, but even better performances, and therefore is overtaking that market. So we believe this is another large disruption which is coming to the business world. So we have an explanation. And I think a lot of times on Wall Street, they do what the happy gene researchers do. They just find correlation. They say, for example, oh, well, here are a few examples of this pseudo analysis or bad analysis, not necessarily false, but bad analysis, which is oh, we have a founder, we have technology, this is disruption. WeWork, Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, all these companies are absolutely not disruptors. They are, the only thing they have in common with disruptors is sometimes they're based in Silicon Valley and they have some software in the company or maybe an app on the iPhone that you can use to use their service. But that's about it. There is almost nothing else which fits into the principle stack that we've created in order to identify candidates for disruption. And there's many other examples of companies that we believe Zoom is not a disruptor. Yeah, it's a technology company, but they're not disrupting anything. They're not very different than a Microsoft or even Slack or whatever. I mean, video is not a disruptive technology. And even a little bit better video, that's a sustaining innovation, which is not disruptive. So long story short, there is a lot of companies out there that Wall Street touts as disruptors because they're using this pseudo analysis, or the analogy in science would be the pseudoscience in the Happy Gene project that I discussed before. So they're actually just throwing out correlations and trying to squeeze companies and stocks into a theme based on correlations that often have no explanation whatsoever, and therefore this is bad analysis. We want to stay away from that. We want to not be in the position that we're not even wrong. We want to earn the right to be right or wrong, and then hopefully over time learn how to be more right than wrong. And in fact, not just that, but hopefully over time learn how to be a few times extremely right and make a lot of money through compound interest and compound knowledge. And we've discussed that also, that in the end, our mission is to stick with the companies that are disruptive and go through that wealth generation process with them. And for that, we have to have an explanatory theory, because this is the only way to stick around for that kind of time, sometimes maybe a decade or 2 or 3, to really generate the kind of wealth that we think we deserve to generate. And that's the best way for us to deliver against our mission. Thank you.